My neighbour texted my wife, "I can treat you better than your husband." But what he didn't know was that I was watching all their conversations live, and his own wife had no idea what was happening. In 48 hours, both of them would face the truth. My neighbour texted my wife, "I can treat you better than your husband." But what he didn't know was that I was watching all their conversations live, and his own wife had no idea what was happening. In 48 hours, both of them would face the truth. My name is Jonathan Hayes, and I'm 38 years old. I work as a systems analyst for a tech company in Manchester, which means I spend a lot of time travelling between our London and Birmingham offices. My wife Sarah and I have been married for 12 years, and we live in a quiet suburban neighbourhood in Stockport. We bought our house here because it felt safe, family friendly, the kind of place where neighbours look out for each other. That was before Trevor moved in next door. Trevor Patterson arrived 6 months ago with his wife Linda and their twin daughters. He seemed like a decent enough guy at first. Mid-40s, worked in sales for some pharmaceutical company, always had a smile and a wave when we crossed paths. Linda was lovely, a primary school teacher who baked cookies for the whole street during the holidays. Their girls were about 8 years old, polite and well behaved. But something felt off about Trevor from the beginning. The way he looked at Sarah when he thought I wasn't watching. The way he always seemed to find excuses to come over when I was away on business trips. Small things at first, things that could easily be explained away as neighbourly kindness. It started with borrowing sugar. Then it was asking Sarah to sign for packages when Linda wasn't home. Then he began offering to help with yard work, fixing things around the house, taking out our bins on collection day. Sarah thought he was just being friendly, and I wanted to believe that too, but I've always been cautious by nature. In my line of work, you learn to pay attention to patterns, to notice when something doesn't quite add up, and Trevor's behaviour was starting to form a pattern that made me uncomfortable. 3 months ago, I installed a comprehensive security system around our house. Motion sensors, door cameras, interior cameras in common areas. I told Sarah it was because of the recent break-ins in the area, which was partly true. But mostly I wanted to keep an eye on things when I was away. Things when I was away. The system was more sophisticated than your average home security setup. Through my work, I had access to commercial-grade equipment and monitoring software. I could watch live feeds from anywhere, set up alerts for specific activities, even monitor our wireless network for connected devices and data traffic. Sarah knew about the cameras, of course, but she didn't know about all of them. And she certainly didn't know about the network monitoring capabilities that allowed me to see every text message, every email, every social media interaction that happened on our home Wi-Fi network. 2 weeks ago, during a 3-day trip to Edinburgh, I was sitting in my hotel room reviewing some client presentations when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. Someone was at our front door at 9:30 in the evening. I switched to the live camera feed and saw Trevor standing on our doorstep, holding what looked like a bottle of wine. Sarah answered the door in her pyjamas and robe. They talked for a few minutes and then she let him in. They sat in the living room, sharing the wine, talking and laughing. Nothing inappropriate, nothing that couldn't be explained as two neighbours having a friendly chat. But it bothered me. Who brings wine to a married woman's house at 9:30 at night when her husband is away? I watched for about an hour before Trevor finally left. Sarah locked up and went to bed. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid and jealous without cause. The next morning, I got my first real confirmation that my instincts were right. I was monitoring our home network traffic when I saw it. A new message thread on Sarah's phone. The sender was Trevor Patterson, and they had been texting for over a week. I accessed the message logs. What I found made my blood run cold. Thanks for letting me come over last night. I really enjoyed our chat. It was nice having company. Jonathan travels so much these days. You shouldn't have to be alone so often. A woman like you deserves better attention. Trevor, that's sweet of you to say, but I mean it, Sarah. I've been watching how he treats you, always rushing off to work, never around when you need him. The conversation continued with Trevor becoming more forward and Sarah seeming increasingly receptive. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the messages. But it got worse. 3 days later, while I was in Birmingham, Trevor sent Sarah a message that crossed every line. I can't stop thinking about you. When I see you in your garden, I wish things were different. Trevor, we shouldn't be talking like this. Why not? We're both adults. I can treat you better than your husband does. I can give you the attention you deserve. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything yet. Just think about it. Think about what it would be like to be with someone who truly appreciates you. I sat in my hotel room staring at my laptop screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My wife was being seduced by our neighbour, and she seemed to be considering it, but Trevor didn't know that every message he sent was being recorded. His phone automatically connected to our Wi-Fi, and my monitoring software captured everything. I discovered that Trevor's pursuit wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated and methodical. He had researched my travel schedule, probably through my LinkedIn profile. He knew exactly when I would be away and when Sarah would be vulnerable. More disturbing, I found evidence this wasn't his first time. His browser history showed searches for how to seduce a married woman, signs an unhappy wife wants attention, and what to say to a woman whose husband travels. This man was a predator, and he had targeted my wife. The most shocking discovery came from messages between Trevor and someone named Marcus. "How's the new neighbourhood working out?" Marcus had asked. "Perfect setup. The husband travels constantly. She's lonely. Should have her wrapped around my finger within a month. Same game plan as before?" "Exactly. Play the caring neighbour, offer emotional support, gradually escalate. Works every time." "What about your wife?" "Linda? She's clueless as always, too busy with her job and the kids to notice what I'm doing." Trevor wasn't just pursuing Sarah out of attraction. This was his method, his pattern. He was a serial manipulator who targeted lonely wives, playing the caring neighbour role perfectly. I spent that night gathering evidence, taking screenshots, documenting everything. By morning, I had compiled a comprehensive file of Trevor's communications, search history, and systematic approach to seducing married women. The next morning, I called Sarah to check in, trying desperately to maintain normalcy. "How are things at home?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady and controlled. "Oh, fine. Quiet as usual. Trevor stopped by yesterday to drop off some mail that was delivered to his house by mistake." She didn't mention their text conversation. She didn't mention his inappropriate messages or his declaration that he could treat her better than I could. That's when I realized Sarah wasn't just being pursued by a predator. She was actively hiding it from me, and I needed to decide what to do about it. That phone call with Sarah changed everything. The casual way she lied made me realize this was far more serious than I had thought. I cancelled my Birmingham meetings and drove straight home. I needed to see what was happening with my own eyes. I arrived around 2 in the afternoon, parking streets away and entering through the back door. I went to my office to check the live camera feeds. Sarah was in the kitchen with Trevor. He was drinking coffee from my favourite mug, sitting close to her while she laughed at something he said. I switched to the audio feed. "I meant what I said in my messages," Trevor was saying. "You deserve so much better than what you're getting." Trevor: "I don't know. This feels wrong. Jonathan and I have been married for 12 years. And how many of those years has he actually been present? How many times has he chosen work over you?" Sarah was quiet. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple. You're a beautiful, intelligent woman being taken for granted. I see how lonely you are when he's away." My hands clenched into fists as I listened to this man systematically dismantling my marriage. "What about Linda?" "Your family?" Trevor waved dismissively. "Linda and I have been growing apart for years. We stay together for the children, but there's no real connection anymore." This was a lie. I had seen them together last week, happy while gardening with their daughters. "I need time to think," Sarah said. "Of course. But don't take too long. Life is short, and opportunities like this don't come around often." Trevor stood and moved closer to Sarah. I watched as he placed his hand on her shoulder and leaned down to kiss her cheek. The kiss lingered, and Sarah didn't pull away. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said softly. "Jonathan's leaving for London in the morning, isn't he?" Sarah nodded. She had told him my travel schedule. After Trevor left, I waited an hour before entering normally, as if just arriving from Birmingham. "You're home early," Sarah said nervously. "Meetings finished sooner than expected. How was your day?" "Quiet. I did some cleaning, watched television. Nothing exciting." Another lie. She didn't mention Trevor's visit, their coffee, or the kiss. That evening, while Sarah showered, I checked her phone. The messages had continued. "I can't stop thinking about our conversation today." "Neither can I. You've given me a lot to consider." "I meant what I said about how I feel. This isn't just a game to me, Sarah." "I know. That's what makes this so complicated." "It doesn't have to be complicated. We're two adults who care about each other." "What if Jonathan finds out?" "He won't. He's too busy with work to notice what's happening right under his nose." Reading those words felt like being stabbed. Trevor was right about one thing. I had been too focused on work, too trusting. But he was wrong about me not noticing. I was noticing everything now. The next morning, I pretended to leave for London as scheduled. I kissed Sarah goodbye and drove away, but parked 3 blocks away and walked back to observe our house. At 10:30, Trevor appeared at our front door. Sarah let him in immediately. Instead of monitoring through cameras, I crept through our back garden and positioned myself outside the kitchen window. "I'm glad you decided to see me," Trevor was saying. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about life being short and not taking opportunities for granted." "And what conclusion did you reach?" There was a long pause. My heart was pounding. "I think you might be right. About everything." That was the moment I knew my marriage was over. Not because Sarah was having an affair, but because she had already made the emotional decision to betray our 12 years together. But Trevor had made one critical mistake. He thought I was oblivious, absent, too wrapped up in work to pay attention. He had no idea I had been documenting everything, and he didn't know that his wife Linda was about to learn what kind of man she was married to. I spent the next 2 days planning my response carefully. This wasn't going to be about emotion. This was going to be about precision and consequences. First, I compiled everything into a comprehensive file. Screenshots of text messages, audio recordings, timestamps of Trevor's visits, his search history, and his conversations with Marcus about targeting married women. But I needed more than evidence. I needed to understand the full scope and ensure permanent consequences. I started with Linda. Trevor's wife deserved to know, but I needed to approach carefully. I researched Linda's background. She was a primary school teacher at Greenfield Primary, well regarded and private. More importantly, her father had recently passed away, leaving substantial inheritance, including a house in Surrey, worth nearly £400,000. Trevor had married into money, and his behaviour put all of that at risk. Next, I looked into Trevor's work. He worked for Northern Medical Solutions, but the company was restructuring, and his position was insecure. Industry forums suggested the sales division might be eliminated within 6 months. This explained Trevor's motivations. He wasn't just targeting lonely wives for gratification. He was facing financial instability and saw vulnerable women as safety nets. Sarah represented security, a backup plan to maintain his lifestyle if his marriage collapsed and his job disappeared. On Thursday morning, I called in sick and drove to Greenfield Primary. I waited until lunch break, then approached Linda in the car park. "Excuse me, are you Linda Patterson?" She looked confused. "Yes, do I know you?" "I'm Jonathan Hayes. I live next door to you and Trevor. I need to discuss something important about what's been happening while you're at work." The colour drained from her face. She knew. On some level, she suspected something was wrong. "This is about another woman, isn't it?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "Among other things, yes. My house. After school. Trevor will be at work until 6. That afternoon, I sat in Linda's living room showing her everything. The text messages, recordings, browser history, and most damning, his messages with Marcus discussing his systematic approach to seducing married women. Linda watched in silence. When I showed her Trevor's conversation about previous targets, she closed her eyes. "How long has this been going on?" "With Sarah?" 3 weeks of active pursuit, but this appears to be a pattern going on for years." "Years," she repeated. "We've moved 4 times in 6 years. Always for Trevor's work," he said. The pieces were falling into place for her. "What do you want from me?" "I want Trevor to stop targeting my wife. I want him to understand his behaviour has consequences. And I want to ensure he doesn't do this to anyone else." Linda stared at the evidence. "What did you have in mind?" I outlined my plan. It was thorough, devastating, and would ensure Trevor's pattern ended permanently. Linda listened without interruption. When I finished, she was quiet. "This will destroy him," she said. "He's been destroying marriages for years. It's time someone destroyed him back." "And Sarah?" "Sarah made her choice when she decided to hide this and engage with his advances. She'll face consequences too." "When do we start?" "Tomorrow morning." Trevor texted Sarah asking her to meet him at the coffee shop on Elm Street at 10 a.m. He thinks I'm in London until Saturday. Linda nodded. "I'll be there." The next morning, I positioned myself across the street with a clear view. Linda was already inside, sitting at a corner table with a newspaper. At exactly 10 a.m., Trevor walked in. He spotted Sarah at a window table and approached with that confident smile I despised. They ordered coffee and settled into intimate conversation. Trevor leaned forward, speaking earnestly, occasionally touching Sarah's hand. At 10:15, Linda stood up and walked directly to where Trevor and Sarah were sitting. Trevor's expression when he saw his wife was priceless. From across the street, I watched the drama unfold. Linda approached Trevor and Sarah's table, her posture straight and purposeful. Trevor's face went white as he registered his wife's presence. His confident smile vanished, replaced by the expression of a man whose world was collapsing. Sarah looked confused, glancing between them with growing alarm. She hadn't expected this confrontation. Linda sat down without invitation. Trevor shook his head frantically, gesturing defensively. Then Linda pulled out her phone, showing them screenshots of messages. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. She looked horrified. Trevor reached for the phone, but Linda pulled it back. The conversation continued for 10 minutes. Linda methodically showed message after message. Trevor's denials became weaker until he slumped back, defeated. Sarah stood abruptly, grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Outside, she pulled out her phone. Mine buzzed. "Jonathan, where are you?" "I'm in London. What's wrong?" "I need to see you. Can you come home?" "What's happened?" "I've made a terrible mistake. I'll catch the next train." Linda left Trevor sitting alone, broken. I drove home slowly. Sarah was on the sofa when I arrived. "You're home quickly," she said with red eyes. "I was returning. What happened?" Linda showed up while I was with Trevor. She had screenshots of our text messages. Personal messages I never should have sent. I sat across from her. "What kind of messages?" "Messages where Trevor told me I deserved better than you. Where he asked me to leave you for him. Messages where I was considering it." "How long?" 3 weeks. It started innocently, but became intimate." "What did Linda tell you?" "That Trevor has done this before, to other women. She had evidence this is his pattern, targeting wives whose husbands travel." Sarah looked desperate. "I feel so manipulated. He made me believe it was real, special, but it was calculated. Linda and I discovered Trevor's behavior. We felt you both deserved the truth." "You've known? About the messages?" "Yes, for several days." "Why didn't you confront me?" "Because you needed to see what Trevor really is. If I had accused you, you might have defended him. But you let me make a fool of myself. You made your choices. Trevor manipulated you, but you chose to respond, to hide our conversations, to meet him." She was crying. "I don't understand why." "Because you felt neglected. Maybe you were right. I have been travelling too much, putting work first." "What happens now?" "We decide whether to rebuild our marriage. But first, there's something else." I showed her the file. Trevor's messages with Marcus discussing his systematic approach. Evidence from multiple cities. "He really is a predator," Sarah whispered. "Tomorrow, Linda takes this to police and his employer. His pattern ends." "What about us?" "That depends on whether you're willing to rebuild trust, and whether I'm willing to be the husband you deserve. Are you willing?" I looked at my wife of 12 years, manipulated, but who had also betrayed our marriage. "Yes, but it will take time and honesty. I want to try. Then we'll try. But Trevor faces consequences first." Linda filed a police report and contacted Trevor's employer. Within a week, he and his family moved out, forced to sell quickly for legal fees. Sarah and I started counselling. It took months, but we rebuilt what Trevor nearly destroyed. Sometimes I wonder if confronting Trevor directly would have been better. But remembering his other victims, public humiliation and professional consequences were exactly what he deserved. Trevor had spent years destroying marriages. It seemed fitting his own manipulation should be turned against him. The quiet man in the corner had seen everything, documented everything, and ensured justice through patience, precision, and truth.